Hello, and welcome to another episode of Self Improvement for Women. I am your host, Hope Long, and today I have a very special guest. We connected immediately when we had spoke prior. We have a lot in common. I have Andrea Arroyo. She is a CEO and she's the founder of Take Your Life Back with Andrea Mack. And she's been on an incredible journey. And that's kind of how we connected in the first place. And we were like, oh my gosh, we have very similar stories. So I'm very excited, Andrea, that you are on today with us.
Thank you so much, Hope. I'm glad to be here. Thank you so much.
So you kind of have, again, a similar story to mine, that, you spent quite a while battling addiction,
Yes.
in traumatic situations, traumatic events,
Yes.
and coming out of that and into a new you, kind of, right?
Absolutely.
So I would love for you to kind of go on and tell everyone a little bit about, what had happened and how you got into who you are today.
Okay. Absolutely. The long and short of it is I am 53 years old, and today I have more than 17 years sober. My sober date is October 4th, 2004. So, as long as I continue to wake up on this side of the dirt and do what I'm supposed to do, in October, I'll have 18 years sober. So just to even say that and have done nothing else except not drink and drug is a huge accomplishment, because so many people think, oh, I haven't done what you've done. Oh, don't focus on what I've done. Focus on one day at a time, one moment at a time, 1 second at a time, because that's really all we have, right? 1 second at a time. And so I think it's really important that we just keep the focus on not drinking, not drugging, not drinking, not drugging. Everything else will come. And if nothing else comes except a sober life,
Still a success.
it's still amazing, right? So how did I get here? Let's see. I had a beautiful childhood, and then I had a tough childhood, right? I have an amazing mom. She worked hard, went to school, gave us everything that she could when she could. And when she couldn't, we didn't have it, right? But she loved, 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 loved us. And things happened that were out of her control, right? So when I was a very little girl, I went to live in Alabama because my mother was taking care of things up north. And I was abused by my uncle for an entire year. And I gave him a name. And the reason that I give him a name is because by giving him a name, he becomes right-sized. He becomes just another person. He's not some big bad boogeyman. He's not a demon. He's not something that, lurks in the sewers. He's just a man with a ton of issues that acted horrifically, right? And so he abused me from the time that I was there for a year in the third grade. So what was that, like 8 years old, 9 years old? And I carried that for a really long time. I didn't talk about it. I didn't share it with anyone. And beyond that, there were a handful of date rapes, right? Went to a guy's house to watch TV or hang out. You're talking late 80s, right? Like 85, 86. And one thing led to another. You're watching TV, you're drinking soda, you're eating chips. Maybe you're fooling around a little bit. And the next thing you know, your Levi's are being like shoved down beyond your hips, beyond your thighs. And I'm like, what is going on here? Right? What is going on here? And I'm not talking about somebody that I was in a relationship with. I'm talking about, although that does happen also, right? People are in relationships. There are wives that have been assaulted, that have been violated, that have been raped by their husbands, because that's a thing that happens, right? And I remember walking home and just being like, really? But because what happened to me when I was 8 years old, I was able to shake it off and keep it moving. I was the epitome of what fine looked like. How are you, Andrea? Fine. How are you, Andrea? Good. What's going on? Nothing. right? Smile and nod, which is the title of an upcoming book that I'm writing, actually. And actually having to do with a completely different topic. And so, childhood sexual assault, a handful of date rapes, what does that lead to? For me, it led to learning how to look fine when I wasn't, learning how to lie through, the prodding of what's going on with your grades, the prodding of why are you cutting school, the prodding of what happened to that sweet little girl that I always knew, right? Like my mom is now bewildered by my behavior, right? Like I'm cutting class, I'm stealing her clothes out of her closet, I'm, opening mail, right? And she's like, what is happening here? To the extent that she had to call my high school and all of her mail had to go to her office because I was retrieving the cut notices, Andrea, it looks like Andrea's about to fail. Andrea is failing. Why haven't you returned our calls? Right. And I learned how to look fine and be okay when deep down I was dying. I was hating myself. I was uncomfortable in my own skin. And what did that lead to? For me, it led to, I went off to college and that was amazing. And I did really well. And then I transferred from a small university. Well, it was a 2-year school at the time. It's a university now. I transferred from a 2-year university to NYU, which was like my dream school. And right, got my grades up, went off to NYU. It was amazing, right? Because your dorm was in the middle of downtown, right? My dorm was 3rd Avenue and 12th Street in New York City. And so what else could I ask for, right? I left this little town on Long Island and all my troubles and all my, right? And wrong. Because when I woke up in the morning, when I got out of the shower, when I went to class, when I went to the library, I was still present.
Mm-hmm.
No matter where I went, no matter if I changed my hair, if I changed my clothes, if I went to a different bar, if I moved to a different state, and that's a whole nother episode.
You
No
take
matter,
wherever you go, right?
right. I took
Yeah.
me wherever I was, right? And so NYU did not last very long. I was attracted to the bright lights and the big city. And I wanted to be a grown up and I didn't want to go to school. I wanted to make money and I wanted to be self-sufficient. And I started working in New York. I was probably 20 and I really stepped in poop, the way they put it. Like I got this great job. I was a receptionist and I became a manager of a very high-end tennis club. And the clients that I had there were mostly men. And one of them said to me, you're lost here. He says, you have to come and work for me on Wall Street. He's like, with your personality and your drive and your just, the intuitiveness that I possess, he's like, come and work for me. So off I went to Wall Street, right? I was like, I knew it. I didn't need college. And it was great. It really was. I felt like I had arrived. I had the liquid lunches, getting the documents signed, right? I was young, I was pretty, I was vibrant, and I could drink like the big boys. And that got the job done, right? To put all of this with a highball, forget about it. Right. My bosses weren't even showing up to the meetings. They were like, here's the paperwork, go meet Sam. Right? Because a smiling face and a drink in hand is going to get the paperwork signed faster than David is, right? Loving it, right? But was I really loving it? I love the lifestyle that it afforded me. I had a beautiful loft on the Upper East Side, had the liquid lunches, bars at 2 a.m, hanging out, drinking. Drinking turned into other substances, found Coke very quickly because the more Coke I did, the more I could drink. The more Coke I did, the more I could drink. And I wasn't going home. I wasn't going to sleep. I was going home with this guy, going home with that guy, partying all night, washing my face, changing my shirt, washing my face, not changing my shirt, going to work. And I remember being on the E train and saying, I don't even want to live anymore. Like I was so miserable. All the money, all the clothes, all the shopping, all the drinking, all the Coke, all the connections, all the promises, I was studying for my Series 7. I was what, 22, you know? And but I still had this thing inside of me. I still had this massive God-shaped hole that I was trying to fill with work and friends and bars and booze and coke and position and and vacations, and I was still lost. I was still sick. I was still miserable. When I was by myself, I was a lunatic. I cried and I drank and I used drugs, and I was not okay. I was not ever okay. The only time that I was okay was when I was in a bar or at a restaurant, right? And then I could have another, I go to the bathroom, do a couple of lines, and I was perfectly fine,
Yeah.
right? Because I was always able to be
You were on, you
perfect.
had to put on to be
Exactly.
out there. So it
I
kept you
was
contained for a little bit. Right.
for a very little bit. What seemed like, but it wasn't a little bit, right? Like it was a long time.
Yeah.
And in the meantime, I had visited a beautiful place on Long Island called Montauk. It's called the End, the very end. That's what the bumper stickers say. And I went out there for a weekend with a very dear girlfriend of mine, and I met a guy. There's always a guy, and I fell in love. And a weekend turned into several years. I picked up my life and I left Manhattan and I moved to Montauk, and it was heaven on earth. If you've never been, put it on the list. It is absolutely beautiful. Beaches everywhere, fresh seafood, and friendly people, smiling faces. And I lived with a man who was a native. And what that means is he was born and raised there and his business was there. It's a resort town. People come, people leave, people come, people leave. He was born and raised there. His family had a business there. And to fall in love with a native made you in. I was in. I was immediately in. I was accepted. I wasn't some like Southie or townie that whatever. I belonged instantly. And I turned the most beautiful place in the world into a living nightmare. Now, this man, he drank, whatever, partied a little bit, not like me, not like me. He would go away on business and I would be rip roaring, hitting every bar around. And because it was such a small town and because it was at the end, some bars closed at 2, but most bars closed at 4. Nothing good happens after 11. Trust me, nothing good happens after 2. And only bad things happen after 4. And it was really bad, like it was there that I was introduced to a harder form of coke. I was taught how to freebase, which is now crack, right? And my life immediately spiraled downward. And I was lying and stealing, and my relationship was over, right? I was doing things that I never thought that I would do. I was hanging out with dealers. Um, I was stealing from people to pay my debt until I got paid. And then I wasn't getting paid because I wasn't working. And I had to go back up island, which means I left Montauk and went north. And, I lived with my mom for,
I lost you on camera. There we are. Okay. You're living
lived
with
with,
your mom.
I lived with my mom for a while.
Hmm.
And that, I'm sorry, Hope. I lived with my mom for a while and that didn't really work because, well, right,
Right.
2 adult women shouldn't be under the same roof under healthy under healthy circumstances, right?
Yeah.
Both working and productive members of society. But now here you have this woman, my mother, she's incredible. She's in her 70s. She's got her doctorate. She's a college professor. And I'm this lunatic, right? Like I'm tipping out of the house at 2 a.m, or I'm tipping in the house at 5 a.m. I've got Coke in my room. I've got beer bottles everywhere. I'm freebasing on the porch. Really? Like this isn't, my mom's like, wait, what's going on here? And
That's a
it didn't
far
look
cry from the little girl that she had, right?
a
And
very far cry.
and I think it's so amazing to me. Like people people that don't have an addiction often look at people with addiction and go, how did that even happen? How did it, like, did you snap overnight? No, we had a hole in us that eventually we were trying to fill. Nothing worked, nothing worked, nothing worked. And then we found the drug, then we found the drink, and that started
Right.
working for us, was what we thought, right? And
Right.
our brains immediately go to this place, and it's not, there's pickles and there's cucumbers. There's people that can pick up a drink and be just fine, and they only have one or two, and they go home and they live a normal
Right.
life. And then there's the pickles, where we are
Right.
out until 5 a.m. We roll in at 6 and we're like, oh man, I'm starting to get a headache, I better have a beer at 6 o'clock.
Exactly. At 6 o'clock in the morning. Right.
And it's just one of those things. I know it seems so absurd, but you're right. It's lunacy. Like it's being a lunatic.
Right.
And we can't see that when we're in it, right?
No.
We are just trying to survive. For us, it's survival mode. It's, if I don't get a fix, I'm gonna get sick. So
Right.
if I don't want to be sick, I gotta go get the fix.
Right.
And it goes on like that until finally you break, right? And
Right.
and I know that some people don't make it through their break. Some people withdraw so badly that they end up dying. Some people
Right.
overdose so badly that they end up dying.
Right.
Some people never make it to that. But you obviously have, having that many years sober is such a blessing. And
Yeah.
living with your mom, I know that was hard, because I've moved back in with my parents too, right? And
Right.
it was like, like a real frictiony.
Right.
But when you're trying to get sober, it's for me, I was getting sober when I was living with my parents, and
Wow.
I needed an example of what it looked like, because I didn't have anything left. I didn't have
Right.
anybody that I looked at and was like, oh, I want to be like them, because I didn't care anymore. And so
Right.
I didn't know what it meant to have a schedule, or, be responsible enough to cook and not leave the burner on, and not, like, you know what I mean? Like silly
Right.
stuff like that. A grown adult woman. Like, I was legit just a mess.
A
So
mess.
moving in with your mom, I know when we had talked before, let's talk about this. Let's talk about you freebasing on the front porch, right? And being the hot mess that you are, and then your mom is looking at you like, where's my little girl?
Right. Right. It was because this was not new for my mom. Yes, it was new for her, having me under the roof with her active, but I had done this before, right? And my mother, very educated, dove right in, figured out, how do I handle this, right? Got her own perspective on codependence, got her own perspective on tough love, got her own perspective on, I pulled myself up by the bootstraps, right? Your father's gone. Here I am, degree after degree after degree, paying my mortgage, living my life, and I can't even leave you in the house alone. My mother would leave the house, I would leave the house, did not have a key. Don't come back until you know that I'm home. Like, that was the situation. And when it got to the point that I was freebasing on the porch, my mother was homesick from work. And I was like, what am I going to do with this? What do I do now? Oh, I'm going to do what I normally do, right? I'm going to freebase on the porch, because I can't freebase in my room. House isn't that big. And she catches me. And all I could say was, I'm caught, right? What lie, what excuse am I going to come up with? I've run out, right? I've run out. And she said, pack what you can carry and leave. And I packed what I could carry and I left. There wasn't any pleading. There wasn't any crying. There wasn't any, but this time.
And a lot of times when you're an addict or an alcoholic, you're so used to being on your own, homeless,
Right.
whatever it may be. Like the first time, yeah, there's an initial shock, but the second time, it doesn't matter. You've already
Doesn't
did it
matter.
once and you don't care anymore. It's
Right.
fine. We'll figure it out.
Figure it out.
Because we
Right.
always figure it out. We figure out how to get the drink. We figure out how to get the drug. We figure out how to get from place A to place B so we can get the drink or the drug. We can do all those things.
Do all of it.
So why can't we just be on our own? And like it
Right.
really, normal people don't get like that. They freak out when they don't have a place to live. Addicts and alcoholics just are like, eh, I'll find,
Okay.
I'll make a
I'll
friend.
figure
I'll
not even thinking that far in advance, right? Really just like, okay, so I got to take this and this and this with me, and where can I drink along the way? I'm not really thinking about where am I going to sleep. That's way too far in the future. I'm thinking about, do I have enough to get me into the city, or do I need to stop before I get into the city? Right? Because everything revolves around the drink and the drug. Couldn't go to work, couldn't go to a party, had to go to a party halfway lit because there wouldn't be enough booze to sustain me. Right? Had to go to a party with at least an 8 ball in my pocket and 5 to 6 lines in my system already, because didn't know who was holding when I got there, didn't even have time for that kind of socialization, right? Had to be self-sufficient, couldn't be without, had to be within me already and had to be holding at the same time. And so now here I am walking out the door, pack what you can carry, and I'm on my way. And so the couch surfing begins, right? I was a waitress, so I knew a bunch of people, and I knew bartenders, I knew restaurant managers, I had friends, right, that I partied with and hung out with after shift. And I did the couch surf thing, right? I did the couch surf thing, and I did that for a while. And that gets old really quick, right? Because these are people that, yeah, they're drinking, yeah, they're using, not to the extent that I am, right? They're doing a couple of bumps and they're having a couple of beers and they're going to bed. And then they're getting up and they're putting on their little Fridays red and white shirt with their apron, right? And it got to the point where I'd burned the bridges and I didn't have any more couches to surf on. And my big old duffel bag became a backpack because I left these clothes here and these clothes there. And then it got too heavy and I just left it. And I had my favorite 2 pairs of leggings, my favorite t-shirt, my favorite sweater, some deodorant, and maybe a pair of underwear, right? Like this is how I was living. And that was fine. That was fine because I was still charismatic enough. I was still pretty enough. I was still funny enough. I was still, once I had a few in me, I didn't wake up feeling this way. Trust me when I tell you, I didn't wake up feeling this way. I needed 3 or 4 pints of Guinness, 2 or 3 lines in my system, and I could laugh, talk, play pool, dance with the best of them. And I wound up living on the A train. Don't know if you're familiar with the New York City subway system. It's not pretty. It's horrible now. But I'm living on the A train, and I did it very systematically. The A train is the longest running train in the system. It runs about, it's probably longer now because of COVID. A lot of buses are off the street, but at the time it ran about 97 minutes one way. And that's a decent amount of, I won't say sleep, that's a decent amount of rest, right? I had bartenders lock me in the bar because they knew that I was homeless. And they were like, just sleep here. I'm on the morning shift. I'll open the, this was my life. This was my life, you know, going home with strangers. They'd get in the shower. I'd be in their sock drawer. I'd be in their briefcase. I'd be in their suit jacket. And I would take anything that wasn't nailed down. And I'm taking the stairs 2 at a time. This was my life. And finally I said, something's got to give. Oh, but before something gave, that beautiful house and that wonderful relationship that I had in Montauk, I, by now it's the winter and I know that he's traveling because his business is closed during the winter. The restaurant is closed and the house is empty. I got enough money together to take a train out to Montauk. We're talking 3.5 hours from New York City on the train. Found a cab, went to the house, knew the house wasn't locked. Nobody locks their houses out there. They may now. And I lived there. Empty house, no heat, no hot water while he's on vacation. And wouldn't you know, he came home early. And he said to me, Andrea, what are you doing? And I looked at him and I said, I have nowhere else to go. He said, I want you to call your mother because I'm sure she's panicked. And this was right around Christmas. He said, I want you to call your mother and let her know that you're okay. And we're going to figure it out. And I was like, whoa. And I called my mom and I went up island and I went into treatment. I went into many, many, many treatment facilities, detoxes and rehabs and therapeutic communities, and something stuck, something stuck. I was able to realize that I wasn't a junkie loser. I wasn't a whore. I wasn't no good. I wasn't all of those things that I'd heard. I wasn't all of those things that I believed. I was sick. I had a disease of addiction and alcoholism. And there was a solution. And I learned what the solution was. And I had counseling. There was some medication involved, right? Because many of us are mentally ill, chemically addicted, right? And so with the bipolar that I was diagnosed with very late in life, I was self-medicating with booze and drugs and men and clothes and work and all that. And I went away, and I went away for a really long time. And part of going away was being hospitalized. I needed to be hospitalized first. And I don't mean on a rehab floor. I mean on a psychiatric unit, right? Because I couldn't read. They would send me to group, and there was one group, and there was a book involved, and I would try and read, and I would just say, I'm happy to be here. I have to pass. And they put me on therapeutic levels of psychiatric medication that they wouldn't be able to prescribe if I didn't live in the hospital. And I finally got my mind right. And the levels of medication eventually were dropped. I'm not on meds now. Have nothing against meds, right? Needed them, don't need them now, right? If you need your meds, take your meds. It's a big part of recovery. It's a huge part of recovery, right? And then I was able to read. I was hospitalized on this psychiatric unit for so long that my mother and my son were able to come up and take me home on pass for the weekend. That's how long I was hospitalized for. And then I went into a halfway house where they taught me how to do the things that we learned when we were little. Make your bed, take a shower, change your clothes, brush your teeth. These are your chores for the day. Go to group, psychodrama, relapse prevention, job training, which I didn't really need a lot of because I was pretty high functioning. And then I realized that not only was I an alcoholic, but I was a workaholic. And my counselor said, you can only work part-time. And I was like, part-time? What am I going to do with part-time? And she says, you know what? You have other things going on, and work will always be there. But I can't hide behind a computer. I can't hide in a boardroom because I could, right? I mean, I could put on my cape and I could handle every problem in North America because when I was sober, that's what I could do.
Yeah.
And today, at 17, more than 17 years sober, there are things that I am capable of doing that I will not do.
Yeah.
Because everything is not for me.
Right.
Every job is not for me.
I think that when people get sober, they often think, oh, well, I have this opportunity because I have this clear mind. So I want to take every opportunity I can get. And a lot of that looks like overextending ourselves, trying to overachieve like too quickly. And what happens is we haven't established within ourselves boundaries.
Right.
We've made external boundaries, right? Because we got sober. We're like, okay, this is for me. This is not for me. This is for me. This is not for me. But inside, we haven't done that because the inside work takes years to do. And so you can get sober in like a week, right? You can get sober in a week. You can't recover in a week, right? And I think therein lies the difference. But that internal struggle. And I think a lot of times when we take on all these projects, we're really hiding from ourselves. And we did this with the drink or the drug. We did this with the drink or the drug, but now that drink or the drug is gone. So now we're going to work a bunch. We're going to be productive members of society. I'm volunteering for the animal shelter. I'm doing this. I'm doing that. I'm running a 5K marathon. I'm doing all these amazing things. Look at me go. I'm so great. But I don't want to address the fact that I was assaulted. And I don't
Right.
want to, I don't want to talk about how hard it was to be homeless because I got through it. I did it, didn't I? I made it. I don't have to
Right.
talk about it anymore. Yes, you do.
Yes, you
Right.
do.
And I think it gets sticky, right? And that's where it comes in. Like, yes, take your meds. Yes, go get help. Yes,
Right.
allow yourself people around you who are going to draw that conversation out of you and who are
Right.
going to say you're overworking, who are going to say you need to take a step back. And that's that, it's your support system, right?
Right.
And then
Absolutely.
also with the halfway houses, for people that are watching, if you guys don't know what a halfway house is, I know there's a lot of misconception. A halfway house is not just a house full of drug addicts and alcoholics, like doing nothing, sitting around and like talking about being sober. That's not what it is. What it is it's a way, it's like going back to being 8 years old, like you said. You have
Right.
to wake up at a certain time. You have certain things you have to get done that day within your community, within your household. You have
Right.
certain classes to attend. You are required to pay bills. You are required to have a job, and you are required to work on yourself with other people. And it's a really good opportunity for people who are struggling with addiction and with consistent sobriety,
Right.
because it just retrains our brains, right? It retrains your thinking. And sometimes you need that. When you spend so long in the dark, it's hard for your eyes to adjust to the light. And
Agreed.
yeah, and so for you guys watching, that's what a halfway house is. And it's not just, it's not like a hangout for
Right.
the miscreants, right? It's much
Yeah, and I'm
more.
glad that you said that, Hope, because I'm glad that you expounded on what a halfway house is, because there are so many misconceptions, right?
I know
And
I
it's
did. I
important.
didn't know. Like when I was getting sober, I was like, I'm not going to a
I'm
halfway
not going there. Right.
house.
And, so I'm talking about 18 years ago, well, 19, because I relapsed for a little while. And things have changed, right? 17, 18 years ago, there was one way to get sober, right? Everybody got sober this way. And if you didn't get sober this way, you weren't going to make it. Okay, stop that. Stop that right now. Okay, yes, I'm sober. And I attribute my more than 17 years to the fact that I have a God, and I had this program, right? That's not the only way. I know a ton of people that got sober by doing this and doing this and doing this and doing this. And so let's get away from it's got to be that. It doesn't got to be that way.
There's more than
Absolutely.
one way to build a business.
There's more than one way to build a business. There's more than one way to ride a bike, right? You could ride. It's like,
Some people are left foot, some people are right foot. Like there's different ways, as long as there's different ways to have the same journey, right? It's like the same,
absolutely.
and it's the same outcome. And
Right.
who cares how you get there?
I don't care how you got there.
Right, just get
I
there.
don't care how you got there.
Doesn't matter. It's so, and then people do this all the time. They put people down, and say, oh well, you have to work the steps. Some people, it doesn't work for them because the steps are sometimes viewed as a religious and not a spiritual program, but it is a spiritual program. But like it's viewed a certain way by certain people, and you can't, people's opinions do matter. And so
Do matter.
if yeah, exactly. And like, so if it's not going to work for you, okay, we'll find something that will. It's not
Right.
the end all be all. Just because you don't agree with AA, or just because you're not a good fit, or you don't feel like it's a good fit, that's
There's
okay.
another way. There's
There's all
10 other
kinds of
ways. There's
ways.
20 other ways.
Yes. Yes.
Absolutely. It's important to say that. It's important to say that. So
So yes. So now again, you're 17 years, you're 53, you're
I
getting
am.
your master's degree. And so amazing. And like I know that, I have some people that follow me that, probably are still struggling with addiction, or struggling with or newly sober, and like
Right.
kind of feeling stuck and
Yeah.
feeling like, okay, now what? I did the hard things, but I'm not fulfilled. How do I
Right.
feel fulfilled? How do I find my passions? How do I
Right.
do this? So I know one of the things we had talked about, one of your favorite things to say is it's never too late.
Never too late.
It's never too late. And you've got some ways for us to get unstuck and to get flowing with our passion and our life force. So
Definitely.
I want to hear all about it. How are we going to get ourselves unstuck?
Okay. So first and foremost, I am working on my master's, but I have to get my bachelor's first. I am in a wonderful program where I'm working on them together.
Oh,
So
wow.
it's a bachelor's, it's called an accelerated into master's program. So while I'm working on my bachelor's, the last 5 classes in my bachelor's program are going towards my master's. It's amazing. It's money saving, it's time saving, right? So I like to keep it real clear. I don't have my bachelor's, but I'm kind of sort of working on my master's. How to get unstuck, how to find purpose. I love that you said that you have people that follow you and people that are watching that are newly sober, still struggling, may not even be sober, right? I've gone to meetings half out of my mind. There are people 20 years, 30 years, 40 years, relapsing, dying because they settled, because that feeling of less than, that feeling of I don't fit in here anymore, that feeling of I'm an empty nester and I can't stand my husband, that feeling of the kids are graduating college and now what? That's grief. Right? My beautiful son, my beautiful Elijah, 22 years old, handed in his last college assignment last night. What? Yeah, you know what I'm going to say, and I'm going to say it out loud. I did that. I did that. I paid his tuition every month, right? I did that. And how did I do that? I didn't, and please don't misunderstand me when I say this. I didn't just get clean. I didn't just stop using. I knew that once I got sober, once I probably had 4 or 5 years under my belt, and I did a deep dive into the sexual abuse. These are not things that you're working on in rehab. These are not things that you're working on in the halfway house. I am grateful for the fact that the counselors in my halfway house, they had their masters in addiction, right? Addiction services and counseling and this and that. But they knew enough to say to me, Andrea, once you get out, and you've got a job and your apartment and you've got Elijah back in your life and you're feeling strong enough within your sobriety, we strongly suggest you work on these traumatic instances, these sexual assaults, these date rapes. And I did that. And I did that. So then I was able to say, okay, what am I going to do? Right. So I was a mentor within the community, individually, at church, gave back to my halfway house regularly. And I said, you know what? I was making money hand over fist in corporate, never had a problem making money, but didn't feel fulfilled. I felt great at what I did. I was a success, right? Bonuses, raises, this, that. But at the end of the night, I was like, all right, so the board meeting went okay, but what's going on in here? What's going on in my spirit? What's going on in my heart? Where's the difference? I shaved $100,000 off the budget. Yeah, anybody can do that. And so I realized it was just around the time that life coaching was becoming, we were hearing it more, had no idea what it was. And I remember looking into it. And I remember saying to my son, I said, Elijah, read about this life coaching thing. And he read it and he looked at me and he says, you're totally doing that already, Mom, as a mentor. I was like, I know, right? So I found this great school. I went to WCI, World Coaching Institute, and I got certified. Why did I get certified? Because for me, it was important. it was important because I answered to a higher authority. I answered to the ICF, right? The International Coaching Federation. If a client of mine reads their story in Barnes and Noble, there's a problem, right? That's not my story to tell. That's confidentiality. By getting certified, it lends believability and credibility to my clients. They like seeing that piece of paper on the wall. They like knowing that I'm a certified life coach. And it gave me a feeling of completion, because when I got my certification, I was still poo-pooing getting my degree, but I had something, right? I had something. And it felt really good. And it felt really good. How did I get unstuck? I got honest. I got honest about how I was feeling. I had a beautiful home in a beautiful neighborhood with a great car, and I had all the outside stuff, right? I was able to take my son here, there, and everywhere. I was able to say, Mom, can I get? Sure. Mom, can I get? Sure. No was in the vocabulary. Trust me, he's not that kid. I'm not that mom. Just not. No is a gift, right? And if we don't give it to them early, they're going to be lost when they get out there. What do you mean I can't have that? That's another episode. How did I get unstuck? How can you get unstuck? By being honest, by having a mentor, by having a village, by having a group of people that you can say, you know what? My job is amazing. My life is still missing something.
Yeah.
Be honest. This is not the 50s. We don't stay married for the kids. Are you kidding me right now?
Yeah.
Half the time the kids wish you got divorced so you'd stop fighting and walking on eggshells. That's another episode.
Yeah.
Be honest. My husband drives me crazy. Let's go into counseling and see how you can stop driving me crazy. I also know that I drive you crazy. Let's go into counseling so that we can cohabitate nicely and that we can do this as opposed to this, right? There's a man cave and there's a she cave, but every now and then the master bedroom needs to be people watching TV together, reading together, praying together, sleeping together, right? If you're 30 years on the couch, I'm sorry, my opinion, there's a problem.
Yeah.
It's more than, oh, I fell asleep watching TV. Knock it off. It's not a mansion.
Yeah.
Walk upstairs, get in the bed with your wife, get in the bed with your husband, get unstuck. How do we get unstuck? To thine own self be true. Stop smiling and nodding. Stop being fine. If you've been to rehab, you know what fine stands for, right? Effed up, insecure, neurotic, and emotionally disturbed, right?
Yes.
If you've been there, you know what it stands for. Stop being okay. Stop being, I'm blessed and highly favored. Knock it off. You're a hot damn mess. Your kids are driving you crazy. Your spouse is making you pull your hair out. Your boss makes you want to stab him with a number 2 Ticonderoga pencil. Let's get honest about what we feel. Let's get on. I've got road rage. Let's get honest. We're in year 3 of a pandemic. Not trying to get political, but let's get honest about what's going on. Some of us have been sheltered in. I was considered essential because I also own my own business for elder care, child care, and household management. So I immediately became essential for all the people that told me, why don't you get a real job? Not trying to be rude here, but I'm essential because I fall under the category of healthcare, right? No robot can do what I can do. I can't Zoom my elder clients, right? I need to be there with them.
Yeah.
And so this pandemic, I remember my son said to me, he was like, Mom, what about all the people that are like only sober 30 days? They can't go to meetings. They can't see their counselors. They can't go to outpatient. My son grew up watching me get sober. I won't mention the program that I use because it's not about that. My son grew up watching me get sober, right? When he had an issue at school, he knew that he was coming home to a writing assignment because that's how I got sober. That's how I stay sober. That's how I stay well. That's how I stay whole. That's how I stay healed.
Yeah.
And that's how I teach him to express himself.
Yeah.
And he was concerned, right? 19 years old. What about the people that are newly sober, Mom? What about the people that want to get sober and they're not going to make their intake? Like, he knows these terminologies, right? And I'm like, I don't know, you know? And so we need to be, here's the good news. There's always good news. The good news is that the pandemic has shown a bright light on mental illness, mental wellness, race relations, all that stuff, right? Zoom. I mean, there are a ton
So
of
many
different
resources.
recovery options, right? I'm learning. I didn't know that there was, I don't want to use the name because I know I'm going to say it wrong. I saw apparently there's a way that you can reprogram your mind. It's a scientific method. Haven't learned enough about it. Want to learn more about it, right? There's this method, there's this method, there's this method. There's the way that it sounds like you and I got sober similarly. There's a ton of different things.
Yes. There's options.
There are options, right?
Yeah.
And I get unstuck every day. I'm going to tell you something that may seem very silly, not silly. These earrings are 7 times bigger than the earrings that I normally wear. I normally wear diamond studs every day, every day, every day, every day. And I'm at a place right now where I am breaking out, getting bolder. My nail polish is blue. What? I've had this nail polish for, my son is 22. My son went to school and the colors were blue, white, and gold, and it was this blue. And every football game, I said, I'm going to put on that blue. And every football game, I did not put on that blue. My son is now graduating from college, and I just put on this blue because there's always another level if you want it.
Yeah.
Look, I worked with a client, and she said to me, so I don't really want to come here anymore. And for 30 seconds, I was personally offended. And then at second 31, I realized this is not about me.
Right.
This is not about me. Her life, her choice. But I did say to her, can I ask why? And if you're not comfortable telling me, you don't have to, right? Your choice, your business. And she said, yeah. She said, to be quite honest with you, she says, I don't want to get any more well. She said, I don't want to dig any deeper. She said, I don't want to know anymore.
She needed a break. She needed a moment. Yeah. She needed a moment to take in everything that had happened within herself. And that
Right.
happens. And it's okay. Like, that happens and it's okay.
It's
because
okay.
You can pick it back up. It's fine. Like, for me, getting sober, I went to therapy, I did some counseling, and I went through some tough shit that I really didn't want to deal with. And so then when I went through some of that tough shit, I called my counselor. I was like, hey, I'm done for a while. And she was like, oh no, we have so much to work through. I said, right now is not a good time, right? I did this. Now I've got something going on in my career I need to focus on for a little while, but I will be coming back. I do promise that. I will make a date, and I would put it in my calendar that I was going to do that. And I did. But yeah, sometimes the mental and emotional wellness, it's a lot. And it's okay. It's okay to have a revelation, to have some amazing stuff happen within, and like to step away from it for a minute and like just start focus on having fun, doing fun things, doing things you enjoy doing, because you need balance. It's not all about getting immediately well right away. And it's
100%.
not all about accomplishing all the things at one time. You know, there's a balance, and there's a overall that will feel more fulfilling than just like snapping your fingers and it's, oh, I'm all better. It's more fulfilling when it is a journey.
Right. I love that you said that. I also have another client that I had to tell her, you do realize that you're hiding out in therapy. Because everything that we learn, everything that I've learned, if I'm not actively applying it, how do I know that it's working? I'm not saying you don't need to come to therapy 3 times a week and, you know, go to codependent meetings and go to this meeting. I didn't say that. Please don't email or text me and say, but I thought you said, trust me when I tell you, that's not what I said. What I said was, it is capable, it is possible to hide out
I
in
did that
therapy.
in rehab. I did it in rehab. I hid in rehab 3 different times for 3
Right.
months, a month at a time. And on month 2, I come back and they're like, "You're back." I'm like, "Yeah, I relapsed." Month 3, they're like, "You just really want to be here." And I was like, "Yeah." And then my counselor said to me, she goes, "You're too comfortable."
Right.
Because I thrived in that environment. I liked being in that
Right.
environment. I was thriving. Felt great. I was like, yes. And then I would get back into real life and I'd be like, oh, fuck this. I'm going to drink and
Right.
go back to rehab. Like, I didn't
Where
think
I knew
about
how to
that at
navigate
the time. Subconsciously, I wanted my safety back. So what did I do? I did actionable things to put myself in a situation where I went to go get safety again. Right.
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
it seemed so crazy. And when she told me that, I was madder than hell. I was like, I was like, what? She's like, yeah, you really like being here. You feel safe. You can't come back here again. And I was like, oh shit. So like, this is the last time I get to be here. She goes, this is the last.
Right.
She says,
Last
I'm not
time.
going to let you back in. I was like, do you do this to everybody? She goes, no, but you
No.
know why you're here. And I was like, oh, okay. So I really
Yeah.
enjoyed myself for the
Yeah.
rest of rehab. I really enjoyed myself. I made a lot of great connections. And then when I got
Right.
home, I was calling and messaging everybody that I knew from rehab and been like, hey, I'm out. I'm not going back. Da, 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 da. And I just tried to continue those relationships because I knew
Right.
my safe place wasn't actually there. It was within
Right.
me. And I just needed to keep being the person that I was in there on the outside.
Absolutely.
Right.
I agree.
And we all do this. We find safe spaces and therapy is a safe space, but
Mm-hmm.
your growth really comes outside of therapy.
Outside of therapy. Right.
The revelations are within therapy. The growth and the change is on the outside, right?
Absolutely. 100%.
Yes,
100%.
I'm with that. I'm with that 100%. I'm a statistic girl 3 times.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
But yes, so for you guys at home, getting unstuck, what does that look like for you? It means just dealing with your feelings, being
Mm-hmm.
honest, following the things that interest you and that you're passionate about. If you want to do something, go and do it, or just take the step to try and do it. The best place to start sometimes is Google, right? Like, it's
Right.
that easy. Everything is available all the time, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Google it, right? And then
Right.
that will send you on a new mission, right?
And sometimes, if I can add to that, sometimes we really don't know, right? Because I had a girlfriend. We're still very good friends, and we were in the halfway house together. And one of our projects in group was write down your 3 hobbies. And she was like, smoking crack, banging dope, and stealing. She didn't know what she liked to do. She didn't have any damn hobbies, right? So I say that to say help is available, right? So I'm a certified life coach. Every time you talk to me, more, I won't say will be, more can be revealed, right? But if you're not sure, if you know that you need help, but you're not sure what kind of help that you need, I offer a complimentary discovery session, right? And so what does that look like? 15, 20 minutes. You tell me what's going on. I listen. You tell me what you'd like to accomplish, how you see your life getting better, or where you feel stuck. And I tell you, well, maybe if you did this, or maybe if you did this, and you say, oh, and then I put you on the calendar, right? It's okay to say, I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
It's okay to say, I think I need somebody to direct me,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because I'm not sure, because how do we know,
The
right?
biggest thing that people have trouble with the most often is asking for
Asking for help.
asking for help.
I have a coach.
I have a coach.
I have a coach.
Yeah. I have a
I have
therapist.
a coach.
I have a coach. I have a therapist. I have an amazing support system of sober women.
Right.
I have people in AA that hold me accountable. I
Right.
have, people on the legal side of things that hold me accountable too for all the things that I did. And then I have all these people. They're my support system. I
Right.
go to them for the help that I need. And sometimes I don't know what I need, right? So yeah, it's okay to be like, I need some help, right? And it's okay to
Right.
ask. It can be your neighbor, it could be your girlfriend, it could be your mom, it could be anybody, right? Just the first step is to be like, hey, I need some help.
Absolutely. I agree.
So,
100%.
Andrea, thank you so much for coming on today. You have been amazing. It was such good conversation. We could talk for hours, I'm sure.
For hours. I was thinking the same thing. I was like, oh my gosh, what time is it? Where are we? This is amazing.
Yes. So amazing, amazing. Thank you so much. You guys, if you want to talk to Andrea yourself, all of her links are here at the bottom. I highly suggest you just reach out and start a conversation with her because the conversation alone is worth $1 million. She's amazing.
Thank you
Um,
so much.
Yes, yes. And you guys, I also have here at the bottom, if you're struggling with drug addiction or alcohol addiction, I have a link that you can go to as well for help. And if you or someone you know is struggling with suicidal thoughts or anything like that, there is a phone number here as well. And you guys, thank you so much for watching. Thank you, Andrea. You are
Thanks for
so
having me, Hope.
incredible.
Thank you.
Incredible. Yes. And you guys, we will see you on the next one.
Have a great one. Thanks.